Welcome everyone to this live global video broadcast. I'm Steve Farrell, the Worldwide Executive Director of Humanities Team, and we're just super excited about today's program. You'll see my guest on camera here in just a second. We'll ask her to say hi when she comes on. I'll give her a formal introduction here in just a moment. This is a live video broadcast, as they are each week. All of these programs are complimentary. We create them for free for the public. And if you miss a program, you can go to the livinginoneness.com site and you can pull down the archive anytime through the following weekend. In other words, this coming weekend, if you were missing this broadcast. We intend to keep these programs free for the public. They do cost us about $1,000 to create, just with all of the what's involved. And so we're inviting you, if you like this programming, to donate to this Living in Oneness Summit. We're going to put a link in the window, and if you're watching this on archive, you can go to the humanitiesteam.org website, and at the top there's a yellow button that says donate. I invite you to click on that, and thank you in advance for your generosity. In Humanities Team, as you probably know, we do see one presence, the divine. We see that all of us, and all of humanity and all of life are emanations of the divine. Doesn't matter how far our lives may be from reflecting this truth, it's still true. Our invitation is to live in this essence of oneness, which of course is an interior essence, to go within, to commune with the divine, and to live in the peace and power and presence of the divine. Of course, each of us are going to do this in our own way. We're all children, or I should say men and women, sons and daughters of the Most High. And so we can live our lives in an extraordinary way where we live in that energy. Yes, I'm sorry, was somebody saying something?
That's Jean.
Oh, Jean. Well, Jean's going to be on camera here.
Okay, Jean, there's a panel. There's a control panel where you see an orange arrow. Below that, we hear you fine. We want you on camera. If you see that orange arrow, there's two buttons below that is your camera.
There's nothing here.
Okay, I'm gonna invite you on camera then.
Okay.
I just sent you a request.
Dr. Jean Houston, in 1 second. She's here with us.
Okay, Jean, did you see the invite I just sent you?
It says the organizer would like you to share your webcam. Would you like to share it now? Share my webcam. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Great. Wonderful. Wonderful.
Okay, here we go. You can see. Jean, do you want to say hi real quick? I'm going to give you a proper introduction in a second.
Hello there, Steve.
All right, great. And Jean has a big birthday coming up here soon. So happy birthday to you,
Thank
Jean.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, Jean is just an amazing, amazing leader here in the Human Potential Movement. I'm going to give her a proper introduction here in 1 second. First, I want to just invite Caroline to come on camera. This is a live broadcast, so we want to invite you to share your questions. We'll get to as many of your questions as we can here during the hour. Caroline, you want to share how people can come on and bring questions to us?
Well, thank you, Steve. Thank you. Hi, Jean. Good to see you. Yes, you have a control panel on your right-hand side, and there you'll see there's a question pane. You can actually pull that pane out and open that window and type in any questions you have right there. So the sooner you get your questions typed in, the sooner we'll be able to get to them. We're going to try to get to everybody's question within this hour. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Caroline Chang. And let's go ahead and get started here now. I'm going to read a very brief introduction here for my special guest. Dr. Jean Houston is a scholar, philosopher, and researcher in human capacities, is one of the foremost visionary thinkers and doers of our time. One of the principal founders of the Human Potential Movement, a powerful and dynamic speaker. She holds conferences and seminars with social leaders, educational institutions, and businesses worldwide. Jean Houston has worked intensively in 40 cultures and 100 countries, helping to enhance and deepen their own uniqueness while they become part of the global community. Her ability to inspire and invigorate people enables her to readily convey her vision, the finest possible achievement of the individual potential. She is a prolific writer and author of 26 books, including A Passion for the Possible, Search for the Beloved, Life Force, The Possible Human, Public Like a Frog, A Mythic Life, Learning to Live Our Greater Story, and Manual of the Peacemaker. And welcome to the Living in Oneness Summit, Jean. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you, Steve. Actually, it's over 30 books at this point. I'm going to have to tell my office to bring things up to date. And it's 109 countries, but who's counting?
And the amazing thing is Jean appears on this program, and she doesn't even like to write.
I hate to write. I can tell people how I write, how to write when you hate to write, how to do something that you don't like to do.
So that tells you, right? We got to rise to the occasion when we're.
This is my 80th birthday coming up.
Yeah, wow, amazing. And you look 60, Jean. So.
That old, my goodness.
Or maybe 55. Yeah, and great to have you with us. It's always just a total pleasure and privilege to have you with us, Jean.
Thank you, Steve. It's good to be with you.
I'm going to just jump right in here with questions, and I thought I'd start, Jean, at the beginning with, of course, as I mentioned, you're this huge leader in the human potential movement, and what is it that initially inspired your interest in awakening human potential?
Well, I think it goes back to an early story. My father was a comedy writer. He wrote the Bob Hope Show and Burns and Allen and all those things back in the 40s, you know, and he was writing a show called Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy. Now, most of the listeners are probably too young to remember that, but Edgar Bergen was a ventriloquist, and his little puppet, Charlie McCarthy, was his, you know, that through which his ventriloquism worked. And Dad had to deliver a script, and we came in, and Bergen did not hear us, and he was sitting sort of catty corner. He was talking to Charlie, you know, his dummy, and he was asking him ultimate questions. Charlie, what does it mean to truly love? Well, Bergen, says Charlie, and these incredible answers, and Bergen would get so excited. But what is the difference between the mind and the soul? I mean, sort of the ultimate question. Well, Bergen, you know, what is the purpose of life? Well, Bergen, and these answers were coming out of this dummy's mouth that were, well, they were like the wisdom of thousands of years of knowing. And my father, who was an agnostic Baptist, he couldn't stand it anymore, and he coughed, and Bergen turned around, turned beet red when he saw us, and he said, well, hello, Jack. Hiya, Jeannie. And my father said, yeah, Ed, what are you doing? He said, well, I'm talking to Charlie. He's the wisest person I know. And my father said, but Ed, that's your mind. That's your voice coming out of that wooden dummy's mouth. Well, yeah, I suppose ultimately it is, but you know, when I ask him these questions and he answers, I haven't got the faintest idea what he's going to say, and it is so much more than I know. Well, I could feel like a ripples going through my skin. It was as if my future had walked in at the age of 8, because I began to understand that who we are and what we think we are, what we know and we don't know that we know, is so much more than we expect. And at that point, my life was slated for essentially what I've done, you know, the last 72 years, and is to explore the range and the depth of who and what we are and what we really can know and be. So that's how it started.
Awesome. Wow. That is inspiring, and it is extraordinary the way you grew up and the people that you met, the presidents of the U.S. and other sovereign leaders who I mentioned in your introduction that you work with as part of your human potential leadership movement and work. What were some of the early instances that helped to formulate your understanding of consciousness?
Oh, really? Some of these stories are too long for this, but I think perhaps the most important was when I was 6 and I was sent to Catholic school because my father, the agnostic Baptist, in order to marry my mother, had to send me to Catholic school for the first year. And it was there that I had all these questions to ask the poor little nun in the morning, like, Sister Teresa, when Jesus rose, was that because God filled him with helium? Sister Teresa, was Elijah drunk when he saw the wheel? And she was getting angry and angry. And then finally I asked the ultimate question that haunts every little Catholic child's mind. Sister Teresa! And she said, yes. She lisped a lot. Did Jesus ever have to go to the bathroom? That did it. Sister Teresa got so mad. She took out a sheet of oak tag, India ink, and she wrote Gene Houston's Years in Purgatory. Anytime I asked one of these questions, she would yell at me, blasphemy, blasphemy, sacrilege and blasphemy, and she'd put 1,000,000 years down. At the end of the first grade, I had 300 million years in purgatory to my credit. That did it. Went home crying. My father found it hilarious. He said, you think you have problems? Wait till you see what happened to poor old Bernadette. And he took me to a movie called The Song of Bernadette. And he got hysterical during the movie because he had known the actress who had played the Virgin Mary, and she wasn't exactly suited to the part. But anyway, so I go home, I run home, and I go up and get in front of an empty closet, and I begin to pray, Virgin Mary, please show up with the closet. Please, I'll give up candy for a week, Virgin. And I gave up all these things, and I kept hoping that, and I kept counting to higher and higher numbers, and opening my eyes, and she did not show up. And so I got up, and I had given up, but I was empty, and I went and sat down by the window, by the bay window, and I looked down and looked up, and suddenly the whole universe opened up. And I knew absolutely that I and my grandfather out there in the yard, putting a smudged pot under a big tree, and the plane in the sky, and then suddenly it opened up to my new shoes and fish off of Sheep's Head Bay and old people dying in a hospital, and suddenly everything was together, meteors and mice, and it was all interrelated, and everything was part of everything else, and it was all moving together, and it was very, 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 very good. And so powerful was that experience, so powerful that it stayed with me my entire life, and I was then on a philosophical journey to understand consciousness, the whole, the way the universe worked, and the way everything was interrelated with everything else. That would be my answer.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that, Jean. And by the way, questions are coming in. Thank you, listeners. There's a question here from Mia that we'll get to here in just a moment. And other questions, if you go ahead and put your questions and comments in the window, we'll get to as many as we can here during the hour. Jean, we, of course, in Humanities team use spiritual language to talk about the same things that you talk about when you talk about jump time and caterpillar to butterfly and human capacities. You were hearing in the introduction, we in Humanities team were sharing. Of course, we were born with Neil Donald Walsh in Conversations with God, right?
My neighbor.
To the divine. Yeah, and of course you guys live in Ashland and are buddies, Ashland, Oregon, here in Boulder, Colorado, so we use the language that we're emanations of the divine, everything interrelated, interconnected, and interdependent. That we're all one, one in the divine, and that means our capacities are divine, which means they're unlimited and eternal. But can you talk just a little bit about, I love the way you described caterpillar to butterfly, imaginal cells, jump time, and the capacities that we have. But you also share that we're incredibly challenged at this time, and we've got to all rise to the challenge now at this time.
I said something shocking at a birthday party yesterday for me in San Francisco. People were shocked, and then began. I said, if Mr. Trump did not exist, he would have had to have been invented. What I am finding happening all over, not simply in the United States, but literally all over the world, is that what has happened with this kind of unexpected event and is that people are being mobilized in their very soul to rise up, to not just to protest, but to insist, to not just to resist, but to go further and to really begin to create things out of the great, smoldering fires of their consciousness, and to begin to say, what do I really believe? What can I really do? So it's almost like we are at an edge of almost becoming a new species. The technical term is speciation, that out of the great sense of no is coming a remarkable, brilliant yes. And this is what I'm finding happening. People are moving forward, they are activating, they are rising out of their dogmatic slumbers, and they are finding things to do, they are joining together. There is a great deal of conjunction of people who are willing to say, our schools are inadequate. You know, there's no such thing as a stupid child. There's only incredibly dumb systems of education. They're saying, wait a minute, this ecology, we are part of a vast ecological network and support system. It is both in ourselves and it's without ourselves. How do we begin to live this incredible journey of this very valuable life where we've been put into time and history at the most important time in human history? I mean, I realize other times thought they were it. They're wrong. This is it. You know, people are waking up. And sometimes it takes these very peculiar events to do it. And this is where we are now.
Yes, we are. Well, awesome. Let me bring in a question here from a listener. This is a question, I think this is from Mia, in Boise, Idaho. She says, I'm inspired by the work of Gene Houston and Humanities Team, ! Would you share a little bit about reinventing yourself and reinventing movements like Humanities Team? So that goes right to it, Gene. How do we reinvent ourselves into this, the human capacities, the divine capacities that we have?
You know, when I was extremely young, again, you're bringing me back. One of the things about turning 80 is you remember your past a lot. I met Albert Einstein. I went to one of those schools that they took us to meet the great elders of the time, Helen Keller. And we went to meet Mr. Einstein, and he was very sweet. He seemed a little big. He had a lot of hair. He had on a blue sock and a red sock. And one of our smart aleck kids said, because we're all about 8 years old, Mr. Einstein, how can we get to be as smart as you? And he said, read fairy tales. We didn't like that answer at all. So another kid raised his hand and said, but Mr. Einstein, then how can we get to be smarter than you? And he said, read more fairy tales, by which he meant imagination. Because it later came out, imagination was his major quality. And it was imagination that allowed him to ride the light beam, you know, and to go and understand the nature of time, space, of gravity. Imagination is they're part of the coding of these imaginal cells, you know, in the cocoon of the butterfly, in the cocoon of ourselves. We turn into mush, and then these cells of new possibilities begin to activate and begin to reinvent this out of this mush, out of the sheer stuff of our life, of our enormous amount of experience, of our complexity, to put together the butterfly, the transcendent levels of ourselves. So we are living in a time in which we are in a state of dynamic reinvention, emergence. I don't think we're the only ones minding the store. I think that there are what I call optimal patterns, optimal templates within ourselves. 4 major ways that we begin to reinvent. One is the body. We begin to embody this larger sensibility. We begin to use in all my books and things, I talk about how to turn on the senses so we become more acute, how to begin to be much fuller in our body. People say, you know, that I am, you know, physically and much, much younger than I am. Actually, I'm being studied right now because I'm considered a medical anomaly because I can't age. I'm actually much younger than the biologically than the age you said, but I lived the life of a 35-year-old professional woman. I'm 80 years old in May, you know. So it's because I've practiced embodiment. I've practiced the realization that we can turn on with consciousness the epigenetic cells, you know, the epigenetics that activate the cells and begin to create a different kind of body, activate levels of mind and sourcing. Then there's the psychological state. We are not encapsulated bags of skin dragging around dreary little egos. We are symbiotic with the whole. We have access to the many, many persona. I talked about not liking to write. I really do not like to write, but I have to do it because of the nature of my life. So what do I do? What do I teach people to do? I happen to be a very good cook. And the reason I'm such a good cook is because my mother, Maria Nunziata Serafina Graziella Firina Perpetua's daughter, born in Syracuse, Sicily, marries Jack Houston of Texas. They hate each other's food. In order to try to keep them together, I become the world's first fusion cook, making chicken fried polenta when I'm about 9 years old. I went on to become a fine cook. I have no blocks at all as a cook. I am really blocked as a writer. So I don't write. I bring in this cook. And when I have to so-called write, I stir in a melange of ideas. I add the seasonings of different kinds of associations. And then I'm launched doing my writing. So I know that I, like you, if I were to ask you, Steve, what are some of the other parts of yourself? You know, just name other persona. Like I can name cook, I can say lecturer, I could say, you know, traveler, God knows. What are the other parts of yourself that you have?
Yes. Well, let me, one quick thing, Jane. Garth Catterall and Caroline Chang wondered if you can move over just a little bit in one direction, because there we go. Thank you. Because on replay, it goes to a smaller camera. Thank you. Well, for me, this one, you know, that we are all one. Of course, that's the humanities team, and one is capitalized, so the sacred, so the divine. That we're actually all emanations of the divine. So I personally really, I believe that's true, and so right now I'm looking out a window, and during the day I'll look out if I need help with anything, with relationship, with healing and health, with financial. I'll say I need, you know, XYZ, and it's amazing how the resources are brought to me, the information is brought to me. It just, I can tell you 100% positively there is no such thing as time. Why can I say that? Because I can ask for things that I need that are out sometimes 6 months, a year, and that information is brought to me today. And I'm so positive that there's no such thing as time that I routinely ask for things that are in the future that come to me now. So you know, and of course the humanities team work is awakening oneness, awakening all humanity and all of life to that we are emanations of the divine. And if we stay in that, what we call in humanities team, the big agenda, where we don't bring any smaller agendas in, but it's the big agenda of really bringing our oneness or our full human capacities to life and all of the spheres of life, and business actually is a key focus of ours. That man, you know, it's just amazing how boulders are cleared from our path, resources are brought in. It's not that we don't have challenges, we have many, but the boulders are cleared from our path and the resources are brought to continue the work and to grow the outreach.
Well, another aspect of what you just mentioned is time and the uses of time. I'm looking at some of the particular things. We know that we can change the past because the nature of time and its oneness is that time past, time present, time future are simultaneous in ways that it's almost impossible for us to understand. That the past exists, that we can accept, the present exists, the future exists, but suppose it is simultaneous and we discover that you can shift the past. Now, not big things, you know, not getting rid of Hitler, but what you can do is you can shift minor things. So, for example, all right, I was always musical, but we moved all the time because my dad was writing these shows and we were on the road. I went to almost 20 schools by the time I was 12. And so I had to have piano lessons, but I had to wait for a big piano in order to have piano lessons, so I never got beyond the simplest part of my piano music. And yet I wanted to be a musical person. So I went back in the past, and instead of having a piano, which was few and far between, I took up the violin in my past. And I could even remember, you know, being able to practice on the train. And so it became so real that that's what I remembered. And the piano was just sort of a bad memory or a bad dream. And then I took, at the age of 55, I took violin lessons. And the teacher said, well, you've studied before. I said, well, not exactly. No, you have. I mean, you have a bowing technique. You know, you seem to, you know, you've studied. I said, well, if you put it that way. So I then picked up the violin at 55 very quickly because I had put it into my past that I had actually had a violin on the train when we were traveling. And then I watched television and picked up some, you know, techniques. But people can take times, let's say they're in the 3rd or 4th grade, And the teacher says during the drawing class, "Oh, Johnny, just stop it. You're just not any good at it." And so the capacity for being an artist was stopped. I put you back in the past where the teacher, and you live it out vividly. The teacher says, "Oh, Johnny, in a house that looks like a fat person. What an interesting idea. You keep at it. So much creativity." And you keep doing it, and you keep doing it, and you keep rehearsing it until it becomes a pattern in your mind, and maybe a pattern in the mind of God. Maybe you're editing the past, which we believe you can do. Not big things, but little things. And suddenly everything begins to shift, you see. And find with it you have access to being art.
Yeah, thank you for bringing in these personal examples. They really make vivid what we're talking about here. There's a question from Lynn that I'll bring in a second. It's interesting, going from millitizer to going green. But before we do that, I want to just go a little deeper into what we're talking about, this process of emergence, and I'm kind of describing my own. Gene, you're describing yours. You share, I mentioned earlier that you say you will be challenged to remember that template and to begin to live with within its potency. And I know you teach classes on emergence. So what are if you might share just a few other processes that you share for emergence, for when you're challenged, how you can remember that template and step into it.
To remember the template of
the template of human capacity, of just where you talk about there's butterfly, there's caterpillar, there's imaginal cells, there's all of it is there.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I do is I show people how to get back into the optimal template, which I think is held in the mind of God, is held in the oneness, is held in consciousness. And I give them very particular ways of merging with that optimal template and doing it fairly consistently until it truly takes, so that it transcends the old obstructions, not only of your life, but of millennia itself. One of the most effective ways of doing this is what I call being in touch with the entelechy. The entelechy is an ancient Greek word which really means higher purposefulness, higher planning. It is the entelechy of an acorn to be an oak tree. It's the entelechy of a baby to be a grown-up human being, etc. It's the entelechy of us psychologically and spiritually actually to have another form of emergence happen for ourselves. So the way they get in touch with the entelechy is they put their hands out, they close their eyes, and they imagine this great entelechy, this loving friend coming to them, and they can feel the love, the absolute love, and the empowerment that comes from this entelechy. So you feel yourself empowered, called forth, evoked, deeply loved, deeply nourished and cherished and understood. And in the feeling of this lovingness, and I may talk for about 5 minutes along these lines, but you know yourself loved, empowered, evoked, activated, and so deeply seen and called forth, and you know that this entelechy is with you as the great companion of your life, as the great helper, as the one who is calling you forth into your profound basic excellence, and is there as guide, as helper, as evocateur. And so I talk like that, and at a certain point, as you begin to practice it, it becomes real, and the emergence begins to take place.
I love that. One of my favorite animations is this Disney one where Hercules in an animation walks into the temple of Zeus, and he's young. He's just with his adoptive parents. He's just scornful of, why the heck am I here, and I don't fit in. What is this all about? So he comes into the temple of Zeus, and he looks up at this huge stone statue, and he says, "Who am I anyway? Why am I here?" And the stone statue comes alive, and the hand reaches down, and it picks him up, and it brings him, holds him close, and he says, "You're my son. Who did you think you were?" And it's just that it's that same image that you call forth, that the divine, truly, we are all sons and daughters of the divine, and we are loved just as we love our kids that way. We're loved that way. Every hair on our head is counted, and loved and understood. And boy, if we can just come from that place of love and being understood, and that connection with Divine Mother, Father, God, wow, you know, I mean, we can really walk around with our shoulders straight, and just all of the I could even say royalty of who we are.
But you know, Steve, that's so interesting, because what I see as I travel the world is slowly, but very surely, there is the emergence of a new kind of world spirituality that is not against the great religions or the nativistic religions, but is actually a new kind of grounding for them. And I think if we're going to have a world civilization with high individuation of culture, and not one country trashing another because of its economic superiority, but if we're moving to that, the primal form of this has to be, I think, and it is happening. Even it's not reported in the papers, because in the papers, if it bleeds, it leads. But you know, but
Right.
it is there. It is a subtle thing happening around the world, of what you're describing as certainly part of this world spirituality.
Yeah, yeah, we really need.
We're in the second axial age. You know, the first axial age between roughly 800 and 200 BC. You have, look who you have. You've got Zarathustra, you have Buddha, you have, you know, Confucius, and all these great beings. Well, now we're in a second axial age, where it's not a great particular being or leader. It is literally a kind of world spirit rising throughout the world, in men and women, in people of all races and nationalities simultaneously.
Yeah.
So we have to look hard for it, but there's no question it's there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now it's just seeing the divine not only in ourselves, but in every person in all of life, not just humanity, all of life. Life is sacred. Well, this is a good lead in to this question from Lynn. I'm not sure where Lynn is from. She says, how do we get all militaries worldwide to stand down and go green? So, Jean, how would you respond to that?
I agree. I think in part she may be referring to the work of Don Beck and Claire Graves, where he talks about the emergence, and they use colors to describe the emergence of different societies. And green is the society of ecological support, of the understanding that we're all part of the same interdependent matrix of love and good. It's more than that, but that is the basic image. You know, when I speak to, quote, military leaders, and you have a really deep one-on-one conversation, it's not that the way they are put forth in the public mind. It's not that they're looking for more bombs and things. Their deeper agenda is not different, that really deeper from ours. But so they're paid to do the classical military things, but they themselves are changing deeply. That's one thing. We have to remythologize our notion of these leaders, and to see them as part of our intellectual work, to see them as people who are looking for peace in new ways, because peace in old ways does not work. You know, we have to make peace sexy. Don't let the war boys hog it all, the spit, the spice, and the glamour. Peace is rooting and branching. It's the little ladybugs on green campions. You know, it's that great thirst for life. It's the smile of a child. We have to make it vivid, and not an insipid dove. Peace has to be very, very interesting. We have to expand our vision and our knowledge and our imagery and our imagination of what peace really looks like and feels like. Then you've got something that is a profound lure of becoming, and not just a symbol.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I talk to these military leaders at their death, this is really what they want also, but they're not allowed to express it. We have to allow the deep expression of peace in people's heart, so we know what it looks like. What does a school, for example, really look like? It has art back is critical to the curriculum, where children are dancing and singing and drawing you know, ideas instead of just being given didactic things on a blackboard. You know, what does a really ecologically sound community look and feel like? It's where you have local gardens, people helping each other, and not just some vast agribusiness, you know, putting out horrible, you know, determinants to weeds. we have to begin to take responsibility from our highest ideas and ideals in our community. That's what peace looks like.
Yeah, amen to that. Yeah, strength and peace, like the peaceful warrior, and that incredible story. Or Ubuntu, what Mandela and Desmond Tutu even today talks about, where we see, you know, we see I am part of you, you are part of me. We see the divine in each other, and it doesn't. There's a real activism in Ubuntu, as Mandela and Tutu have demonstrate. Of course, Mandela has transitioned, but Tutu, wow, what an activist!
Big time, close to
Yes.
92.
Extraordinary. So let me bring in, I want to just stay with, because we invited these listener questions, and Monique says, how do you find out what your own optimal template actually is? Gina, I know you teach the whole classes on this, but is there any?
Classes when I teach, I teach what the optimal template feels like, looks like, you know, and how you increase, as I said, your physical sensory sense. You turn on your epigenetics. You know that you are both healer and cook and garbage collector and wild woman and wild man and musician and singer and dancer, and you have all these other parts, and you begin to bring them together. And as you begin to make a list of really all the different parts you are, begin to dance and sing each one. So I might dance and sing myself as a cook. I might dance and sing myself as a comedian, and think, but I begin to integrate these things into myself. And as you come into this fullness, you then can do an exercise with the entelechy and let the entelechy, who knows all these parts of you, take you to the optimal template and feel yourself immersed in its goodness, filled with its joie de vivre, its tremendous joy of life, and above all, so loving, so compassionate, so there for the other. You know.
Yeah, amen and amen to that, Gene. Awesome. By the way, Gene, this is a good segue into, you've got a program coming up that you're limiting to, I think it might have been 40, but June 2nd to June 6th. Rebels and Creators of Tomorrow in Ashland, Oregon. I think it's in your home. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, when does that one come up?
June 2nd to the 5th is what I show.
Oh, yes. No, that is a place, yes, it's in my home in Ashland, Oregon. And it's limited to about 15. It's not 40. I don't know.
15. Okay. Wow.
And if people are interested, they come in, and it's a 3-month thing, so that we are together for something like 4 or 5 days, very intensely in my home, which is pretty interesting in itself. And there we work intensely, and then we continue to meet. You know, we have different sessions over the next three months. You know. And you're going to learn a lot of these things that I'm talking about. You're going to learn to be what is the title? Give the title again.
It's called Women Mystics, Rebels and Creators of Tomorrow.
Yes. Yeah, well, it's also for, so I will talk about the great women mystics and how they broke through, and the great women creators and how they broke through, and how they brought a whole new sensibility into time and space, and the great women rebels. But as we go through their lives, we begin to incarnate and understand some of the capacities that they have, as well as the capacities I've been talking about. And so you come through and you really feel yourself thriving, ready to arrive on the scene of history and to make a difference, as they did.
Fantastic. And what is it, JeanHouston.com, that people go to learn more about that, Gene?
Yeah. Gene Houston, one word, JeanHouston. Houston is
Fantastic. June 2nd to the 5th, Women Mystics, Rebels and Creators of Tomorrow, and only
but
about
I work individually and collectively, and it's limited to 15 people. It's not 40.
Fantastic. Wow. Well, sounds awesome. I'm sure that we'll have more than a few listeners that'll check that out.
Thank you.
Let me bring in now, this is going to this whole area of of sacred activism. So this is a question. Let's see, this is from Lynn. It says, how do we set up our New Earth community healing arts and transformation services centers to heal our veterans, homeless, abusive addictions, and others with mental health issues, and regenerate them at heart and soul resonance services with co-creating new health and human services and social healer services? So it's kind of a sacred activism thing. How can we organize to help some of these kind of demographics in our community?
One of the things that I've created is something called social artistry. And really, that the artistry is not necessarily a canvas or a music sheet, it is society. And social artistry is something I've been deeply doing for many, many years. That you know yourself as a social artist. You begin to, one of the best things to do is to first start a community of maybe 5, 6, 10, 15 people where you work together to enhance yourself, whether you're using the humanity team, you know, things that are there available useful materials to grow together, or my kind of work or other people's work. You start to grow together, but you grow not just for yourself, but you grow for others. You increase your body, mind, psyche, wisdom. You tap into source. You become a sorcerer. You know, but as you do this, you're also physically, mentally doing things to expand your own capacities together. From there, as you do this, you find what needs to happen in your town, in your community, so that you can have your own sense of, you know, whether you're going to be working with food, or with climate, or with any of, or schools, or whatever you're going to work with. And you find that as you grow within, you then have a spot-on sense of, yes, this is where we should be working. Here's what we can do. And it's as if source or God or whatever you want to call it, consciousness itself, the cosmic mind, leads you. And this is what I find happens all the time. And as you also indicated, Steve, in your own life, leads you to just where you have to be and go to make the best possible happenings and results. That's what I find.
Awesome. A small group, and sometimes we talk about just our true self, where the S is the capitalized on self.
But it's
Of course,
true
we're all one.
coming together. True selves coming together really can create the butterfly life, the transcendent life, the life of the one who can profoundly make a difference.
Absolutely. And Lynn, boy, let me say to you, now is the time, as you know, thank you for that question of how do we come together to support things like veterans groups and the homeless in our communities. And now is the time. We are all absolutely being nudged to action by things like this recent election here in the United States and other nationalist populist things going on worldwide. There's likewise a question. This is from Audrey in Scotland, and she says, how can we make changes in our schools, Jean?
Well, the state of the art of what makes a good school is very, very large. I've written about it in a number of my books. I'm going to recommend my book, Jump Time, which has a whole chapter on great schools and how to make good schools. I mean, because this is huge. First of all, you become aware of what is the state of the art. And you start visiting some of the schools that do it. And you see that they make tremendous test scores too, you know, when the child is using the whole body and the whole mind of the child. They are emerging, there's no question. Find out, and I know that in England and Scotland there are, and in Wales too, there are some of these optimal schools. I can't name them just right off the top of my head. I know that I can name schools in America, in Connecticut, the Mead School, MEAD, in Minnesota, the Clara Barton School. Go to my book, Jump Time, and there's a chapter that starts off about why Shakespeare was Shakespeare, because of the school that he went to, which really encompassed so much of what we're really looking at today, and things, of course, that we don't do. But find out the great schools. Find out what are the schools that are the emerging schools in England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland too, and visit them. Find out what they're doing. Bring in their teachers to talk to your teachers. You know, go with the best and bring the best in to discuss, you know, optimal education. And friends, in optimal education, art has a very critical point to play, because if a child is not good at linear, rational reading kinds of skills, they may be superb at dancing, singing. You work with where the child is, and then you find that the brain-mind system then creates a wonderful byway, if you will, a circuit between the artist child and the child who, and the capacity to think in other ways as well, which includes reading and mathematics and science. Fascinating that often when you have schools where choral singing, this is true in Hungary, where choral singing is important, the child begins to succeed in math and science. Because singing activates in the brain the same parts of the brain sitting right next to the mathematics and science. I mean, there's just so much is known, and it has to be applied. And if teachers can get lecturers to come in and books to come in to talk about the state of the art of education is very, very high in the understanding. The state of application is something else again. Then you get into politics.
Absolutely. Let me mention Audrey too. My kids go to a Waldorf school, and Waldorf is, of course, worldwide. It's in Europe as well, and it's awesome because it brings in the whole spiritual dimension.
That's true.
You know, it develops the full character, and it develops the individual in line with their capacities to be educated.
But it still is a private school, Steve. You have to pay for it, isn't that right?
Yes, yes. It is. Waldorf schools are private schools, so you do have to pay for them. But boy, they're worth just every nickel, because my kids are going. They're right now 6th and 9th grade. They're going through high school here, and soon in the case of a 6th grader. And boy, instead of getting lost on this whole material, path, and with all the kinds of things that can happen, including drugs and things, Waldorf just points them into at human capacity. And there's a spiritual language, and even in sports, my son plays basketball at the Waldorf school, and the whole focus is bringing your best to your sport, having fun, and supporting the team. And so the parents in the stands it's not the normal thing where it's just all this alpha male, type thing of get him out of here, and instead there's just this love and support for the whole team, and it's awesome. So yeah, Audrey, thank you for that question. But I want to, Gene, you mentioned your book, Jump Time, and Jump Time, we've only got about 13 minutes left. So let's talk a little bit about that Jump Time. What is how do you define Jump Time, and what's the invitation in Jump Time?
Jump Time is the time that we're in right now, where things are moving so fast and so quickly, and new ideas begin to emerge, and that you're in a time of acceleration. We're in a time of acceleration just compared to our histories of 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Jump Time also refers to an evolutionary event, and the evolutionary events where you look at a wall that has fossils over hundreds of thousands of years, and you look at one level, same fossil, same fossil, same fossil, and then suddenly, whoop, it jumps, and it has new qualities, you see. And so you can actually see the evolutionary agenda happening. And we are in a time just like that. We are in a phenomenal jump time that isn't just within certain societies like Renaissances, but is literally happening globally because of the global interconnections of people. It's also true, unfortunately, that in the jump time, you have the rising of some of the worst behaviors of the past. Again, part of this is the media. If it bleeds, it leads. So that's what people see, and then they lose hope when they see all these bad things happen. But to many people, and I believe it's the majority, the bad and the good are seen in context. It's a kind of supreme historical irony that it is happening together. And so you go with the good, you go with the new schools, you go with the ecological movements, you go with the situations where people who truly, truly care about people in the community are elected, and not just the old-fashioned politicians. I mean, there is so much opportunity, is there not? Huge opportunity. Everybody is important in this time. And the most important, people say, well, Jane, you study history and all that. What's the most important event? The most important event is the rise of women to full partnership with men, slowly but surely, and not so slowly anymore, along the whole, being responsible for the whole agenda of life and service and stewardship on this earth at this, the most critical time in human history. Why is this happening? Because with many women, the majority, the emphasis is on process rather than product. Making things cohere, develop, grow. Inner space being as important as outer space, you know. When you go to these events of growth events or human development events, who are 70% of the attendees? They tend to be women. Women know these are the times, and we are the people.
Well, that's a great segue. And let me mention, Jean Houston has been part of Global Oneness Day, and she's an extraordinary contributor every year, just lights a fire under the day. And this year, her panel is called Women in Oneness. So isn't that perfect, as we're talking about the importance of women rising to equality with men?
But you see, Steve, this allows, as women rise, it allows men to be released from all structures and become who and what they really can be as well. So it's not just about women.
Absolutely,
but
yeah.
Activates the rise of men.
You know, and I find that of course, as we go to this interior space of the divine, to me, it brings us together into that space where we find, if we're male, we find the divine feminine, and if we're female, we find some masculine qualities, because, of course, the divine is a she and he. And maybe the healthiest places where we come into that intersection, huh? So just share with people, Global Oneness Day, you can go to globalonenesssummit.org, globalonenesssummit.org. You'll see Jean Houston there. I don't think we've got all the panels up yet, but she's on the Women of Oneness panel. It's going to be an extraordinary panel. Jean Houston, Claire Zammit, Deborah Rosman, Marcy Shemoff, and Christy Whitman and Deborah Ponyman are on that panel. So, wow, I want to invite you to be sure. That's on Tuesday, October 24th, Global Oneness Day. And, of course, Global Oneness Day is what we call our Earth Day for an awakened humanity, where all of these things that Jean and I are talking about are the theme throughout this 13-hour continuous program. So be sure to catch Jean on Global Oneness Day. Jean, so we're getting close here to the end, and I know you're always calling people to action. You've got many calls to action. As you feel into your call to action for this listener group, what might it be?
Well, first of all, I think it is to both celebrate and to practice oneness. You know, and I agree that's not necessarily easy. It's very easy for children, but it's not because we have lived in a divided and distinguished world for so long. So it is a practice, and there are many ways of doing the practice. One of the practices is to go out and, for example, we're in the midst here in Oregon of a brilliant spring, you know, after so much rain, and you go out and you are part of the trees. It's easy to become what you behold, and the greening and the upstart spring. And so you practice oneness. You read something that is so beautiful, and you practice oneness. You even think of people that you love, and you practice oneness, and that's how you start. I really believe that.
Oh, beautiful. Yes, and oneness, of course, is just where we think we're an emanation of the divine, of the Most High, of God, of the universe, and where we really live into that, where now our true self is no longer just our body. It's oneness means, of course, we're interconnected and interrelated with the whole universe, with everything that we see. And where that's true, that means there's connection to each other, there's connection to nature. Where there's connection, there's responsibility.
The universe in miniature. We don't just live in the universe. The universe lives in us. This is my greatest passion right now, because I'm a student of quantum physics. And that really tells us that we are inextricably part of the universe, which means that everyday life in the quantum universe rises in us with so many new capacities and powers that we never suspected that we had. And that's my great passion in teaching now. What are these unexpected powers that allow us to live fertile, creative, loving, evocative, passionately involved lives. We are universal.
Beautiful, Gene. And of course, there's so many scientists too that have made it their life work. Nassim Harriman, who's come out with this incredible documentary last year, and Bruce Lipton and Greg Braden and Lynn McTaggart, and those four are part of Global Oneness Day. They're the science panel this year.
Do you know Dwayne Elgin? Dwayne Elgin is one of the leaders of all of this. Who wrote
yes, absolutely. Dwayne Elgin, who also, and he's also part of Global Oneness Day. He's on the Restoring Mother and Earth and Family Humankind panel and during Global Oneness Day. And of course, the Living Universe, which Gene talks about, we talk about, that is the life work of Dwayne Elgin. He just talks about it in an extraordinary way.
One of the most important books of our time. Another very great book is one, it's called The Dream of the Cosmos. The Dream of the Cosmos. You can get it on Amazon, by Anne Baring, who is one of the great thinkers in terms of women's spirituality and in mythology. Dream of the Cosmos. I consider it the most important book of the last 20 years.
Wow. Dream of the Cosmos, one for the library. Let's check that one out on Amazon. Gene, let me thank you so much. Wow, what an extraordinary program. And of course, just the wisdom that you bring to these programs, and the heart, love, and compassion, and vision, and call to action, and everything is extraordinary. I'm gonna thank you some more, but that gets me started. Let me just go to a few messages here for listeners as we're winding up. Humanities Team is a key member of this Conscious Business Alliance. It's composed of 4 global NGOs: Humanities Team, the Club of Budapest out of Europe, the Goy Peace Foundation out of Japan, and the Fowler Center for Business out of the Case Western Reserve University. We invite you to go to consciousbusinessdeclaration.org to read about the Alliance. This is where we're putting consciousness, oneness, firmly into business. That's what these principles of the Declaration are about. I invite you to go to consciousbusinessdeclaration.org and read it. If you get an inner yes when you read the Declaration, we invite you to sign it, and invite then your friends and coworkers to sign it as well. Also, as you probably know, Humanities Team is in the lead on this Conscious Business Initiative. It's a global effort to transform business. We know the project's incredibly ambitious, but with your assistance, we're making progress. We know you probably share the heartache that we do when you look out on the world and the things where businesses are sometimes not contributing healthy, nurturing to communities and to the world. So we are a nonprofit. Invite you to contribute to our initiative. We're going to put a link in the window, and if you're watching this on archive, you can go to humanitiesteam.org. You'll see donate up there at the top of the site in yellow. Invite you to contribute anything you can: $5, $10, $15, anything that might be on your heart to contribute to this initiative. Upcoming programs that you don't want to miss: on Thursday, May 4th, we're doing a quarterly program that is in support of Global Oneness Day, and Barbara Marks Hubbard and Neil Donald Walsh will be with me for that program. It's on Thursday, May 4th. It's at 9 o'clock Pacific time. Be sure to check that out. And if you go to the livinginone.com site, you'll see all of the upcoming speakers. They're amazing speakers that are coming up as well. Everything is free, and if you miss the live program, the replays are free. This program's talked about living in oneness, so I want to invite you to something called Community Circle. It's only $10 a month, and it's an intentional community that's virtual for those that are living in oneness. You get to collaborate and connect with spiritual leaders from all over the world. You get continuous access to over 350 programs like this one with Gene that you can listen to anytime, anywhere with friends and family. As well, there's a bi-monthly program just for Community Circle members. It's on video like this, where members come together to share their successes and challenges in a really intimate way. And there's a lot more. Again, it's only $10 a month. If you go to, I think we're putting a link in the window, or you can go to humanitiesteam.org and scroll down. You'll see a big rectangle that says Community Circle to learn more about it. So let me come back. Gene, I want to thank you again. Thank you so much for being here with me today. It's just always extraordinary. I'm going to have to get up to Ashland and get into the kitchen with you one day.
That would be good. And remember, if you want to be in touch, GeneHouston, one word, .com, and you'll find out about some of the things that I'm doing and a very important upcoming seminar in my home.
Absolutely. That one on June 5th sounds extraordinary. Be sure to check that out. And her other, she's got programs year-round. Go to GeneHouston, to learn more about Jean's programs. I also want to thank my, yes,
.com.
please.
I think it's .com. You'd have to
GeneHouston.com.
Yeah.
GeneHouston.com. Okay, be sure to check that out. Also want to thank my colleagues here, Garth Catterall, Nanette Kennedy, Dee Meyer, and Caroline Chain. Thank you so much. They're the ones actually that create this program and make it possible. And then saving the best for last, thank you to each of you for making it a priority to be a part of these programs weekly. Gratitude. And in closing, I want to invite all of us to really live as one. That was Jean's call to action, to really live as one. Of course, when we do this, we'll each do it in our own way, and we'll get in touch with the peace and power and presence of the divine, which is our essence. We're all emanations of the divine. See you on Thursday, May 4th with Barbara Marks Hubbard and Neil Donald Walsh for this extraordinary program. It's at 9 o'clock Pacific. Be sure to join us. Jean, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Live in the oneness.
Namaste. Jean, looking forward to virtually celebrating your birthday here soon. I turned 60 on May 21st.